The grand hall of the Galactic Council was filled with light and voices. Every species in the known galaxy had sent a representative. Tall beings with wings, glowing creatures with no faces, and small robot-like diplomats floated beside golden chairs. They had gathered on Helios Prime, the central planet for intergalactic politics. This was the final day of the peace talks between Earth and the Varnock Empire, one of the most powerful and feared alien kingdoms in the galaxy. For years, the Varnock had stayed away from alliances, but now, things had changed. Standing near the front was Rin, a human diplomat from Earth. He looked calm, wearing a simple black suit, but inside, his heart was beating fast. He had made a decision, one that no human or alien would expect. At the other side of the hall stood the Varnock royal family. They were tall, with scaled skin and glowing eyes. Their armor sparkled like stars. In the center was King Zarnak, ruler of the Varnock, his strong arms crossed as he watched the council with silence. Next to him stood Princess Yura, the eldest daughter. Yura was known across the stars, but not for good reasons. She had green-gray skin, 2 tusks sticking out of her mouth, and large yellow eyes that many found scary. Even among her own people, she was seen as strange. She didn't look like the other royal children, who had perfect silver scales and long horns. Whispers always followed Yura. Why is she always hiding? Why hasn't she married yet? Even Varnock warriors avoid her. Yura knew what others thought of her. She had grown used to the stares, the laughter, and the silence that followed her in royal halls. Still, she stood tall beside her father. Her posture was strong, and her eyes sharp. Then, Rin stepped forward. The room grew quiet. He looked around and said in a clear voice, "I bring a message not just from Earth, but from my heart." Some laughed already. They thought he would say something poetic to impress the Varnock. But Rin didn't stop. He turned to King Zarnak and bowed. Then, he faced Yura. He looked her in the eyes not with fear, but with respect. "Princess Yura," he said, "I ask for your hand in marriage." Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped a glass. A member of the Varnock Guard blinked in shock. Even the floating crystal being from planet Doran paused mid-glow. Yura's eyes widened. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. King Zarnak looked at Rin with a hard face. "Explain." Rin nodded. "This is not a trick. I see in Yura a leader, a mind full of ideas, and a soul strong enough to stand alone. I wish for peace between our worlds. But more than that, I wish to stand beside someone who is not afraid to be herself." The council chamber exploded into noise. "He's lost his mind. He's doing it for power. Why her, of all beings her?" Back on Earth, Rin had studied every species. He had trained for years in alien culture, language, and diplomacy. But he had also learned to see people for who they were, not just how they looked. He remembered the first time he met Yura, during the early days of peace talks. While the other royals ignored him, Yura had asked a question no one else did. Why does Earth want peace? What will it cost us? She had seen through the politics. She had challenged him, not with anger, but with calm logic and strong will. That day, Rin saw something no one else did: true strength. Now, in front of the galaxy, he was ready to prove it. King Zarnak raised his hand. The hall became silent again. He looked at his daughter. "The choice is hers." Yura looked at Rin. She had spent years hearing only lies or silence. But Rin was different. His words had weight. His eyes were clear. Still, she didn't answer. With a smile or a nod, she stepped forward and said, "Why do you not fear my face?" Rin replied without hesitation. "Because I've seen beauty twisted into cruelty. I've seen pretty faces hide ugly minds. What I see in you is truth. You don't wear a mask, and that is rare." Yura stood still for a moment. Then, slowly she held out her hand. "I accept," she said. A wave of noise rushed through the room again, but this time it was confusion, disbelief, and even fear. One counselor whispered to another, "What game is the human playing?" Another muttered, "Does he know what she is?" But none of their words could stop what had just happened. Rin and Yura had made a choice, one that would shake the galaxy. In a hall where people judged others by looks, power, and bloodline, a simple human had broken all rules. He had chosen the ugly princess, not for strategy, not for control, but because he saw her. The news of Rin's proposal to Princess Yura spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every space network, news channel, and gossip board was talking about it. Human diplomat marries Varnock beast. Earth's shameful union with the monster. Princess, love or political trick? Even on Earth, many questioned Rin's decision. People said he had lost his mind. Some thought he was lying, trying to gain power over the Varnock Empire. Others believed he had been forced by alien mind control, but Rin didn't care what they said. He had made his choice with a clear heart. He stood by Yura, inside the Varnock royal palace, far from the noise of reporters and counselors. Princess Yura sat alone in her chamber. The room was carved from deep purple crystal with tall windows, showing the stars outside. She stared at her reflection in a silver mirror. Her skin was rough and gray-green. One tusk was slightly crooked. Her yellow eyes glowed even in the dark. She touched her face slowly. "Why me?" she whispered. She had been asking herself the same question for days. From the day she was born, Yura had been treated differently. Her father, King Zarnak, had tried to protect her, but even he could not stop the whispers. She was the first in the royal bloodline born with scale mutation. Her siblings had smooth silver scales and graceful bodies. Yura had thick skin, strange patterns, and glowing eyes. When she was young, she tried to play with other royal children. They ran away. When she entered training, the teachers told her to stay quiet and watch. No suitor came for her. Not even for politics. Once, a prince from a moon colony agreed to a marriage meeting. When he saw her, he laughed out loud and left in front of everyone. Yura never forgot that day, but she did not cry. She did not break. She read books, studied history, learned languages, and trained harder than anyone in the palace. While others learned how to wear crowns, she learned how to fix engines and pilot warships. Still, no one looked past her face. Until Rin. In the days after the proposal, Rin visited her every day. He came with no guards, no gifts, no tricks, just himself. He listened. He asked questions about her world. He even helped her fix an old Varnock memory machine in the palace garden. "You are not like other humans," Yura said one day. Rin smiled. "You are not like other royals." She tilted her head. "That's not a compliment in my world. It is in mine," Rin said softly. She stared at him, confused. Not because he was kind, but because he was honest. Most beings faked their words. Rin didn single quotes T. One evening, they walked under the twin moons of Varnock. The stars above glowed brightly, and soft winds brushed over the hills. Yura asked a question that had been sitting in her heart. "What if the council rejects our union? What if your people ask you to leave me?" Rin looked up at the stars, and then at her. "Then I will leave the council. I will leave Earth if I have to, but I will not leave you." "Why?" she asked again. He paused for a moment, then said, "Because you deserve to be chosen, not as a duty, not as a deal, but for who you are." Yura didn't reply. But that night, for the first time in her life, she smiled when she looked in the mirror. While their bond grew stronger, trouble stirred behind their backs. Inside the council's private chambers, the top members argued. "We cannot allow this." "Marriage," said Grohl, a four-eyed ambassador from the GAN system. "It weakens Earth's image." Another, a smooth tentacled diplomat from Zavar, added, "It also gives Varnak too much influence. They are warriors. We cannot trust their rule." "But the human is only a diplomat," said an older voice. "What power does he hold?" Grohl slammed his hand on the table. "Power begins with loyalty. And he is now loyal to her. They voted in secret. Some wanted the Union broken. Some wanted Rin removed from his position. Others suggested using media to pressure Earth's leaders. Plans were made. Rumors were spread, but none of it stopped Rin. He stood before every news camera and repeated the same words. "I will marry Princess Yura. Not for politics, not for looks." In the Varnak capital, people began to change their minds. At first, they were shocked, then curious, and slowly respectful. Children asked their parents, "Why did the human choose her?" And some parents for the first time said, "Because he saw her worth." Yura walked through the city one day, and instead of turning away, people nodded to her. A few even bowed. She had not changed, but how people saw her had begun to change. In the center of the palace, preparations for the wedding began. It would be the first union between a human and a Varnak royal in history. It would also be the most watched event across the stars. Yura stood at the balcony, looking over the city. Ein stood beside her. "Are you ready?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "No." Rin looked surprised. "You're not?" "I'm not ready to be loved by so many," she said quietly. "I've only just begun to love myself." Rin gently took her hand. "Then we will begin together." The day of the royal human wedding grew closer, and excitement spread across planets. Some were happy, some were confused, and others were angry. Not everyone liked the idea of a human marrying a Varnak princess, especially one like Yura, who had always been mocked for her looks. But Rin stayed calm. His focus was on Yura, not politics, not power. He had made a promise, and he was ready to keep it. However, behind closed doors, the Galactic Council was making plans. Inside a dark chamber, deep below Helios Prime, members of the inner circle of the council gathered. The room was quiet except for the soft humming of the lights and the slow steps of Ambassador Grohl, who stood in the center. His 4 eyes moved from one face to another. He had always seen humans as weak and emotional. Now one of them was going to marry into a warrior empire and possibly gain their protection. "We cannot allow this marriage," Grohl said firmly. "One ambassador, a feathered being from the planet Velka, replied, "It is just a wedding." Grohl frowned. "It is not. Look deeper. A human joins the Varnak royal family. Soon he will have access to their ships, their technology, their influence. And the princess? She may not be beautiful, but she carries royal blood. She will have power." "Then what do you suggest?" asked another member. Grohl smiled slowly. "We break them apart, quietly." The council started a campaign. Not open war, not direct orders, just small moves. First, they sent false messages to Rin. A fake report arrived from Earth, saying that the Earth Council no longer supported his mission. Another message warned that his family was in danger if he didn't return home. Ein checked the sources. They were fake. Then came the news feeds. On hundreds of planets, news stories appeared. Rin charms Varnak princess for power. Ugly bride, foolish human, a joke across the stars. Varnak alliance weakens under human trickery. The council wanted to hurt them with words, not weapons. Even Varnak soldiers began whispering behind closed doors. Some asked if Yura had used chemicals or control tech on Rin. Others wondered if Earth had hidden plans to take over the throne. In the palace, Yura heard the rumors. She said nothing, but her heart grew heavy. "Why do they hate me so much?" she asked one night. "They don't hate you," Rin answered gently. "They fear what they don't understand." Despite the noise outside, the two grew closer. Rin shared stories of Earth's mountains, oceans, and old myths. Yura told him about the Varnak's history, how their ancestors traveled through black holes, fought living stars, and built cities inside gas giants. They were from different worlds, but their thoughts matched. They respected strength, honesty, and loyalty. One day, Rin said something that surprised her. "You know, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Yura shook her head. "I'm not strong. I'm just used to being alone." "Strength isn't always fighting," Rin said. "Sometimes strength is standing tall when everyone wants you to fall." Yura looked at him quietly. "Then we'll stand together." The council didn't stop. Their next move was worse. They invited Rin to a secret meeting. The message was formal, clean, and marked urgent. Curious, Rin attended. He entered a silver chamber where Grohl and 3 other council members waited. Rin of Earth. Grohl began. "We respect your position, but we must speak clearly. This marriage must not happen." Rin folded his arms. "Why?" Grohl's voice was smooth, but cold. "Because it brings imbalance. The Varnak are powerful. Earth is still young. The galaxy watches closely. If you marry the princess, it sends a signal that Earth controls more than it should." "I don't speak for all of Earth," Rin said. "I speak for myself." "Exactly," another counselor said. "And that is the danger. A single man changing the path of many worlds." Then they made him an offer. "We will give you land, wealth, and a position of power within the council. You will return to Earth a hero. All we ask is that you leave her." Rin stared at them, silent. He thought of Yura's face when she smiled. He remembered her words, her strength, and the way she never asked him to stay, yet never stopped him either. He stood up. "I am not for sale," he said. The counselors did not move. Grohl narrowed his eyes. "Then you make an enemy of the council." Rin smiled calmly. "No, you make an enemy of yourselves." And he left. When he returned to the palace, Yura was waiting for him. She looked tired. "I heard what happened," she said. "Did you think I would leave?" Rin asked gently. "I hoped," she said, "but I never expected." He walked closer. "Why?" "Because no one ever stayed before," she said softly. He reached for her hand. "Then I'll be the first." But something else was happening. Deep within the palace library, hidden among ancient scrolls and glowing symbols, an old royal advisor was reading something forgotten. He found old texts about Yura's bloodline. Strange markings that only matched 1 in 1,000 royal Varnok. And as he read more, his hands began to shake. He stood up fast and whispered to himself, "She's not just a princess. She's something else. Something the council feared even more than war. Something even Yura did not yet know." In the quiet halls of the Varnok Palace, the sky above was darker than usual. A strange silence hung in the air. Deep below, in the royal archive, an old advisor named Bren walked quickly through glowing corridors. He clutched an ancient scroll. In his hand something he had found buried under layers of dust and forgotten data files. His breathing was heavy. His mind raced. Princess Yura was not just unusual. She was not just a royal daughter with different skin. She was something rare. Something that had not appeared in thousands of years. Rin and Yura were sitting on the palace balcony, watching the stars. They often came here at night, away from reporters, cameras, and political noise. Yura rested her chin on her hand. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "what life would have been like if I had looked normal?" Rin shook his head. "If you were like everyone else, I might have walked past you and never known what I missed." Yura looked at him and smiled, a small smile, but a true one. Suddenly, Bren appeared at the door. He bowed quickly. "Forgive me, Princess. I must speak with you and the human immediately." Yura stood up. "What is it?" "It's about your bloodline," he said, voice shaking, "and the stars." They followed Bren to a hidden room deep beneath the palace. Strange symbols lit the walls, old language, long forgotten. In the center of the room was a large round table, and on it lay a glowing scroll with moving patterns. "This scroll," Bren began, "comes from the time of the star mind's ancient Varnock, born once every few thousand years. They were not warriors, they were not rulers, they were keys." "Keys?" Rin asked. "To something greater," Bren said. "The star minds could connect to the ancient machines in the galaxy, machines left behind by the ones who came before all of us." "You mean the builders?" Yura whispered. Even she had only heard the name in old stories. "Yes," Bren said. "The builders created machines buried inside stars, hidden under ice worlds, sleeping for ages. They respond only to one type of mind, a star mind." Bren turned to Yura. "Your mutation is not a flaw, it is a sign." Yura felt her heart beat faster. All her life, people told her she was strange, broken, wrong. Now she was hearing she might be something more, something powerful. But she didn't feel powerful. She felt confused. "How can this be true?" she asked. Bren stepped closer. "Your eyes glow because of inner light, rare energy passed through ancient blood. Your mind is stronger, faster. Haven't you noticed how machines respond to your touch? How systems open before you speak?" Yura paused. "It was true. When she entered the palace engine room once, the ship lights flickered. When she used the training simulator, it ran faster than normal. Once, she touched an old war machine, and it hummed even though it had no power. Thought I was just lucky," she said. "No," Bren said. "You were chosen by time itself." Word of the discovery spread fast, but not through the public. Only a few royal advisors and trusted elders were told. King Zarnak, when he heard, fell into silence for a long time. Then he said, "My daughter carries the voice of the stars." Even those who once ignored her now bowed with deep respect. The Varnock elders held a quiet ceremony. They painted a symbol on Yura's hand, the mark of the star mind. But Yura did not feel joy. She sat alone in the garden one night and told Rin, "I thought people hated me because of how I looked. Now they love me because of what I might become. But no one sees me." Rin sat beside her. "I do, you always say that." "Because it's always true." She looked at him. "Would you still want me? If I wasn't a star mind?" "I wanted you before I knew," Rin said. "And I'd still choose you if you had no powers at all." She leaned against his shoulder. "Then that's enough." Meanwhile, far from the Varnock world, in the cold depths of space, machines began to stir. Ancient satellites blinked. Old star beacons pulsed. Something had awakened. One of the builder machines hidden under the surface of Doran 5, a dead planet, activated for the first time in 10,000 years. It sent a silent signal that it had felt Yura's presence, and it was calling her. Back on Helios Prime, the Galactic Council received strange reports. A ship had vanished near Doran 5. Communication systems around the sector were glitching. Small black holes were forming and closing rapidly. Grohl read the reports with growing fear. "This is her doing," he muttered. Another counselor replied, "It's not her fault." Grohl banged the table. "She woke the Ancient Ones. She is not just a Varnock, she is a star mind. If she controls the builders, then no army can stop her." "What do we do?" Grohl narrowed his eyes. "We stop her before she understands what she truly is." In the palace, Yura stood at the star map, watching the blinking lights. The machine on Doran 5 was calling her name, not in sound, but in thought. She felt it in her bones. "I have to go there," she said. Ian stood beside her. "Then I go with you. It may be dangerous. I don't care." She looked at the stars, then at him. "Then we go together." She didn't yet know what Doran 5 would reveal, but deep in her heart, something was changing. The galaxy had mocked her, but now it would remember her, not as a mistake, not as a joke. The stars above the Varnock Palace shimmered strangely the night before Yura and Rin left. The air felt heavier, the silence deeper. Even the guards who stood watch said they had strange dreams, dreams of machines with eyes, stars that whispered. And a name spoken across time. That name was Yura. She stood in the hangar beside a sleek silver ship. It was built for deep space travel, fast, strong, and quiet. The ship's lights glowed brighter when she approached it. Rin stood beside her, checking the systems. He wore a black travel suit and carried a scanner and emergency beacon. "Ready?" he asked. Yura nodded. "I've waited my whole life to know what I really am." The engines hummed as the ship lifted into the sky. They were going to Doran 5, the dead planet that had recently begun to call out through silent waves. Only Yura could feel the signal clearly. The message didn't have words, but it felt like an invitation. Like something was waiting for her. Doran 5 was far away, hidden at the edge of forgotten space. It had no cities, no light, no sound. Its surface was covered in black rock and ash. Long ago, a war had burned its skies. Now it was quiet. Until the moment Yura's ship entered orbit. Suddenly, one of the old machines beneath the surface turned on. Its eyes opened. Its heart began to beat slow. Deep pulses of energy. It had been waiting thousands of years for a star mine to return. Yura and Rin stepped onto the cold ground. Dust rose under their feet. The wind howled gently through sharp rocks. Rin turned on his scanner. "There's something big underground, metal, alive." Yura placed her hand on the ground and closed her eyes. She felt it. A hum beneath the stone. A memory in the soil. "This way," she said softly. They walked for almost an hour until they reached a giant stone door buried in the mountain. Strange symbols glowed on the surface, ones neither of them had ever seen. But Yura's eyes lit up. She stepped forward and touched the center symbol. The door answered. It opened with a loud, deep sound. Dust flew everywhere. Inside was darkness. And beyond that light, the chamber inside was massive. Machines floated in the air, held up by invisible forces. Golden lines ran along the walls like rivers of energy. A tall, silver machine stood in the center. It looked like a statue, but its chest pulsed with soft blue light. Rin looked around. "This place, it's not just a machine. It's alive." Yura walked slowly to the center. The machine opened its eyes. Two bright white lights stared at her. Then a voice, not loud, not harsh, filled the room. "Starmind, you have returned." Yura's body froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "I don't know who I am," she said. "You are the one chosen," the voice replied. "You carry the signal, the code of the builders. You are the bridge." "The bridge to what?" Rin asked. "To everything," the voice answered. "To knowledge, to weapons, to protection, to destruction, to the soul of the galaxy." The machine slowly knelt before Yura. It raised one metal hand and placed it over its chest. "We are yours." Yura stepped forward. She was not sure what to feel: fear, pride, confusion. But she placed her hand on the machine's metal chest. A blast of light exploded from the room. For a moment, time stopped. Rin watched as strange symbols floated around. Yura, her body lifted off the ground. Her eyes glowed blue, brighter than ever before. She saw images, worlds rising and falling, machines building stars, dark threats moving in the corners of space. And then darkness, a shadow with no name, a coming danger. When Yura landed, she almost fell. Rin caught her. "I saw it," she whispered. "Something is coming, something worse than war." Rin helped her sit. "What did you see?" "Not just machines," she said slowly. "A dark wave, a force with no shape. It eats stars, destroys light, and it's coming." Back in the Galactic Council, alarms were going off. Ships had gone missing near the edge of the galaxy. Entire colonies stopped sending messages. Space stations disappeared without warning. Grohl read the latest report and slammed his hand on the table. "It has begun." Another counselor asked, "What is it?" Grohl's voice was cold. "The Void Tide." Stories of the Void Tide had been told only in whispers. A silent swarm that moved across the universe, eating everything in its path. It had no form, no language, no mercy. And now, it was awake. On Doran 5, Yura stood in front of the machine once more, that had given her something, a connection to the others like it, hidden across different worlds. There are more machines like this, she sighed. Guardians from before time. They were made to fight the void. But they've been sleeping, Rin said. Until now, Yura replied. Now that I'm awake, they will be too. The machine opened a small panel. Inside was a silver crystal. Glowing softly, Yura took it carefully. The machine said, "This is the beacon. Use it to call the rest." As they left the chamber, the door slowly closed behind them. The signal was sent. Across space, other machines heard the call, and they began to wake. Back in Varnock space, King Zarnak received Yura's message. He stood in front of his army and sighed. "My daughter is the Starmind. She has awakened the Guardians. The void comes. We will stand with her." And on Earth, leaders met and made a decision. "This human Rin," one said, "may have saved the galaxy." The council, silent and afraid, now had no choice. They too would follow Dot as the ship returned to Varnock. Rin and Yura sat together in silence. The galaxy had once laughed at them. Now it was calling them for help. Yura held the silver crystal tightly. "I'm no longer hiding," she whispered Dot, and as the stars lit up in front of them, Rin answered, "Then let them see who you really are." The sky above Varnock Prime was no longer calm. It was filled with ships, thousands of them, from different planets and empires. Fleets from Earth, Varnock, and even smaller neutral worlds had arrived to form a united force. In the center of it all was Princess Yura, now known as Star-Mind. No one called her ugly anymore. No one laughed. The girl once mocked for her strange face was now the only hope the galaxy had. Inside the Varnock War Hall, the leaders gathered around a large map of stars. Red points marked systems that had gone dark, lost to the Void Tide. Blue points showed the new machines Yura had awakened, guardians hidden on forgotten planets. King Zarnak stood with pride beside his daughter. "Yura will guide us," he said. Yura stepped forward, holding the silver crystal beacon she had taken from Doran 5. Her voice was clear. "I have connected with 6 guardian machines across the galaxy," she explained. "But there are more. We must find them and activate their defenses before the Void Tide reaches our center worlds." "What happens if we fail?" asked a general. Rin answered, "Then everything will be gone. Not just cities or armies, everything." The room fell into silence. Then one by one, heads nodded. They were ready to follow. The first battle came faster than expected. A signal was lost from the Kirin system, a small trade colony near the galactic edge. Within minutes, scouts were gone. No answers. No warning. Yura boarded the flagship named Hopefire, with Rin by her side. The Varnock War Fleet and Earth Sky Cruisers followed. When they entered the Kirin system, they saw at the Void Tide. It was not an army. It was not ships. It was a storm. A black wave that moved like smoke, swallowing stars, turning planets into dust. It had no face, no voice, only hunger. Yura stared at it from the command deck. "It's faster than I thought." "We can't fight that," a pilot whispered. Yura closed her eyes. She reached deep into her mind and called the nearest guardian. From the icy moon of Kiren 4. Something answered. The ground cracked open. Ice melted, and a massive shape rose from the deep. A machine taller than any building, with arms like mountains and eyes like twin suns, stood against the black tide. It was called Terra's 1, a defense titan built by the builders. As the Void Tide rushed forward, Terra's 1 slammed its fists into the ground. A blue shield spread across the system like a bubble. The wave crashed into the shield and stopped. For the first time, the void did not win. Rin watched as energy surged around Yura. Her body glowed faint blue. The Guardian machines were not just tools. They were alive and they listened to her alone. "You're controlling it?" he asked. "Not controlling," she said, "connecting." On the ship's screen, the tide started circling the shield. "Searching for a weak spot. They'll try again," Yura said. "This is just the beginning." The generals agreed. They had to act now before the tide grew stronger. In the days that followed, Yura and Rin led a mission to awaken more Guardians. They traveled to desert worlds, jungle planets, and even gas giants. On each one, a machine was found sleeping, waiting and ready. Yura spoke to them in thoughts, not words. Each time she grew stronger. Her body remained the same, but her mind expanded. She could feel distant systems, sense danger before it arrived, and even understand forgotten alien languages. Rin stayed close to her, guiding, helping, and protecting when needed. "You were always meant for more," he told her once. Yura shook her head. "I was meant for truth. And now, I'm finally walking in it." Back on Helios Prime, the Galactic Council met again. This time, they were quiet. Grohl, who once mocked the union between Rin and Yura, stood with his eyes low. "She has saved more lives in 3 days than we have in 3 decades. He admitted. One counselor asked, "Should we make her commander?" "Of the galaxy's defense?" Grohl replied. "She already is. We're just late in seeing it." But as Yura awakened the 6th Guardian, something changed. This time, she saw more than light. She saw the heart of the void. It was not just a storm. It had a mind, a will. It had once been something else, something ancient and full of sorrow. Long ago, it had tried to control the builders. When they refused, it became shadow. It was born from betrayal, and now it wanted the galaxy to feel the same pain. Yura fell to her knees after the vision. Her head throbbed. Her eyes burned. Rin rushed to her. "What happened?" She looked up slowly. "It knows me now." That night on the ship, Yura stood alone at the window. The stars looked smaller. The galaxy felt heavier. She whispered, "Am I enough to stop it?" Rin stepped behind her. "No," he said softly. She looked at him with surprise. "We are," he said. "Not just you. All of us." She smiled faintly, then turned to face the stars. Final message came through the beacon. The last and most powerful Guardian lay hidden in the core of a broken world. Zalar 9, a planet lost in darkness. To reach it, they would have to fly directly into the path of the void. Yura did not hesitate. "It ends there," she said. And with her words, the galaxy moved as one. Ships were prepared. Weapons were charged. The last battle was near. No longer did anyone laugh at the girl with yellow eyes. They saluted her. They followed her. Because now, the whole galaxy believed in the one who was once left behind, the Star Mind. The galaxy held its breath. Across stars and systems, beings of all kinds looked to the skies. Warships lined up in orbit. Space stations lit their signal lamps. On Earth, Varnuk, and dozens of other worlds, people gathered to watch history unfold. In the center of it all was a single ship, flying toward the edge of known space. Inside that ship stood Princess Yura, now known by all as the Star Mind. Beside her stood Rin, her partner, her strength, and her choice. Ahead of them lay Zalar 9, the broken planet, where the last Guardian waited. And around it, the void tide, a dark ocean of shadow and silence, circling like a trap. The ship shook as it entered the gravity field of the planet. Warning lights blinked red. Outside, pieces of rock floated like shattered glass. The planet had once been full of life. Now only ruins remained. "We're close," Yura said. Her voice calm. Rin held her hand. "Then let's finish what we started." They landed the ship on a narrow cliff, surrounded by broken towers and black sand. The sky above was covered by the swirling cloud of the void, closing in like a curtain. But Yura was not afraid. She walked forward with the beacon crystal in her hand. As she reached the center of the ruins, the ground lit up, a symbol glowed under her feet. A giant machine, hidden beneath the surface, began to rise. It was bigger than any guardian before. Its body was shaped like wings. Its chest held a core, brighter than any star. Its eyes opened, and they burned with white light. The final guardian had awakened. Its voice echoed like thunder. You are the last star mind. Speak your will. Yura raised the beacon. The void has returned. We need your strength. The guardian knelt. Then take it. You are our light. As the guardian linked with her, Yura's body filled with energy. Her thoughts reached across space. One by one, the other guardians responded. From icy moons, desert caves, and oceans of gas they rose. 7 guardians, 7 protectors. And at their center, Yura. She was now the mind that united them all. But the void did not wait. It moved. Sky above Zalar 9 turned black. From the clouds came long arms of darkness, reaching out to destroy everything in their path. The guardians stood tall, blocking the first wave. They pushed back with light, with power, with strength that came from stars themselves. But the void was endless. More arms came, more shadows spread. Even with all their force, the guardians were struggling. Inside the control chamber, Yura's hands shook. Sweat rolled down her face. Her mind was linked to all 7 machines, but the connection was heavy. Too much power. Too much weight. I can't hold them, she gasped. Ein stood beside her. Yes, you can. You're not alone. He placed his hand over hers. And in that moment, something new happened. The beacon changed. It glowed brighter, and new lines appeared across its surface. Human lines. The machines responded. Not just to Yura, but to both of them. Rin, though not born of the builders, had become part of the connection through trust, love, and loyalty. They were stronger together. The final guardian rose higher, its wings opening wide. It released a beam of light into the sky, cutting through the black storm. The other 6 joined. The void screeched, twisting and shaking, trying to escape the light. But the machines were no longer just weapons. They were alive, and they had chosen to fight. Yura and Rin stood side by side, glowing with the energy of 1,000 suns. Yura shouted, "Now!" A final blast surged from the guardians, forming a ring of light that expanded across space. The void cracked, then shattered. The shadow wave broke apart, screaming as it disappeared into empty space. The storm was over. The light had won. The next day, the stars were clear again. The galaxy was safe. Ships returned to their homes. Planets sent messages of thanks. Children were named after Yura. Statues were built in her honor. But she didn't want a throne. She didn't want a crown. She returned quietly to Varnak, where her people greeted her not with fear, but with respect. And this time, when she walked through the city, no one looked away. They bowed. They smiled. They saw her. At the palace, Rin and Yura sat on the garden wall. Flowers bloomed under the blue moons. Birds sang from the crystal trees. Peace was in the air. Yura looked at Rin. The galaxy thinks I saved it. You did, Rin said. We did, she corrected. He smiled. You still want to marry a simple human diplomat? I already chose you, she said, long before the galaxy chose me. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Yura said, Do you think the void will ever come back? Rin looked at the sky. Maybe, but if it does, it'll find us waiting. Yura nodded. And this time, it won't laugh. 1 year later, a ceremony was held. Not for battle, not for politics, but for love. Yura and Rin stood under the stars. Hand in hand, the galaxy watched. But no one mocked. No one whispered. No one laughed. Because the girl they once called ugly was now a legend. Not for her face, not for her power, But for her heart, the galaxy would remember her forever as the one who united the stars. And Rin, her brave, loyal human, stood proudly beside her. Together, they had proved the truth. Humans are not weak. Love is not foolish. And sometimes, the one who is mocked becomes the hero. The end.